The goal is not to live forever, but to create something that will. Scott Harrison, ex nightclub promoter turned philanthropist, Scott is the CEO and founder of Charity Water, a nonprofit organization that looks to solve one of the biggest issues in today's society, which is the water crisis. How do we live in a world where everyone has access to clean drinking water and safe sanitation to live their lives? Scott is not only the biggest hero in my life, but he's also an amazing influence in the way that he thinks about storytelling, branding, and marketing. And that's what really inspires me about not only him, but his organization, which is exactly why in this week's episode of MasterTalk, I have the privilege and honor of breaking down one of my favorite people of all time, Scott Harrison, and his communication style. Hi everyone, my name is Brandon, founder of MasterTalk, on your go-to channel to mastering your talk. And today we are breaking down the man, the myth, the legend himself, Scott Harrison. So let's get into it. Number one, have a huge vision behind your public speaking presentations. I'm sure you've heard of those speakers on social media, right? You know, they come up there and they go, here's how many times you should post. These are the number of times you should talk about Instagram and YouTube. And it's pretty boring, right? You know, they talk about how many times you got to do all this stuff. And obviously they get paid for their time and that's all interesting. But when you're Scott Harrison, you're presenting 100 times a year. If you mess up even one of those presentations, there are thousands of people who will not get access to clean drinking water. And that is a very different game that you're playing. You know, if you're doing your little social media consulting, you're standing there, you're like, well, I mean, if they don't post, I don't really care, I still get paid. But in Scott's case, every presentation, everything is on the line. And that is what it means to have a huge vision behind every public speaking engagement that you give as an individual who has an idea to share. The bigger the vision, the easier it is to master communication, period. Trying to teach something for money? Yeah, sure, you'll be okay. But if you're trying to make a dent in how the world operates and lives, then the reason for you to give the speech is a lot, bigger, and you'll spend a lot more time and effort and resources to get it done. Same thing with MasterTalk. You know, I'm not just making these videos for the sake of it. I'm doing it because I want the videos to be timeless. So I put all my energy, all my effort, and all my resources into making sure that the energy I bring is top notch all the time. So what's the message for you? The message is, once you find the idea that you want to share, slowly learn to obsess over it. Who's benefiting from the idea? Whose life is being changed, essentially. And through those conversations, the dinners you have with your audience, the lunches, the coffees, you'll slowly understand why it's so important for you to speak in the first place. And the clearer you are about that, the more serious you'll take public speaking and the bigger your vision will become. Number two, include the stories of the people around your idea, not just yourself. What I find fascinating about Scott's presentations and his keynotes is most of it is about his personal transformation from a nightclub promoter to a CEO of a huge nonprofit. But what's also fascinating is the way in how he includes the stories of other people in his presentations. Charity Water isn't just about the CEO of the company. It's about the donors who give money. It's about the people who work there, who run the programs. It's about the kids, the 7-year-old kids who have lemonade stands and raise $7 for the organizations. Charity Water is not a story about him, it's a story about all of us. So when you're an audience member sitting in one of Scott's keynotes, you're thinking to yourself, you know, Scott's great, but when Scott uses the stories of other people, you think differently and you say, I'm not just inspired by what Scott says, I want to be a part of this movement as well. I want to donate. I want to give back. I want to join what he's doing. And what he's demonstrated in his keynote applies for all of the great brands that we know. Apple, Nike, and the list goes on. Especially Nike in particular is not just about the brand or wearing nice shirts. It's a story about the people who dare to run, who dare to exercise. It's a story about high performers. And if you wear Nike, that is the story that you tell yourself. So the next time you give a presentation, don't just think about your own story, though it's important. MasterTalk is great. I started this in my basement. That's all cool. But also focus on the other people around your idea. Whether it's 16-year-old Julia who discovers my videos for the first time and speaks about mental health to a classroom of high school students, to Scott Harrison himself who uses these videos to make his presentations better. MasterTalk is not just a story about this guy in a suit. It's a story about all of us. So include those stories and you'll be a phenomenal speaker. Number 3, if your goal is to impact millions, public speaking has pretty much nothing to do with the presentation. What do I mean by this? Presentations are great and Scott's an amazing keynoter, but that is not the secret to his success. It's the hour-long dinners that he has with his donors. It's the conversations, the questions that he answers for people who come up to him and say, oh my God, I want to ask you a question. It's the relationships he builds. It's the live streams that he goes on, the podcasts that he guests on. Public speaking, everyone, is not just the presentation. That's a part of the experience. The more important part is how do you leverage that presentation in a way that drives the movement forward. I believe as of this recording, I think I actually hold the world record in the number of podcasts that anyone has ever guested on, because I guest on 10 to 15 podcasts a week. So why do I do that? Do I get paid to be on these shows? No. I don't care if there's 2 people on the podcast. I don't care if 10 people are watching. I want to make sure that every single human being who wants to master public speaking knows that I exist, because speech coaches are really expensive. So the question for you is the following. How far are you willing to go to share your idea? If it's just a presentation, you're going to impact your local community. And I'm very proud of that. I think that's an amazing accomplishment. But if your goal is to impact everyone, your actions need to transfer over to the impact you want to make. You need to get that extra call done. You need to get onto that podcast. You need to share your message and constantly talk, so that public speaking changes from being that little sprint, that little 2-hour workshop you gave, to hours and hours of endless conversation. So get to it. The goal is not to live forever, but to create something that will. When I first heard that quote from Scott, it really made me rethink the way that I thought about the YouTube channel, the way that I shared ideas, the way that I gave and facilitated workshops. Because at the end of the day, the impact that we want to make in the world, the ideas that we want to share, are way more important than anything else if we want to be the incredible speakers that we seek to become. So if your goal is to be a pro like Scott, to share ideas to billions of people around the world, my advice would be to understand that every single moment of your life is public speaking. And the more that you pay attention to each of those moments, by including the stories of others, by having meaningful conversations with the people who can help your idea and move it forward, the faster that you'll make your idea come to life. As always, if you enjoyed this week's episode of Master Talk, be sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well to see more videos like this. And if you know anyone that's a fan of Scott Harrison, a supporter of Charity Water, or who likes charities and giving back in general, I would highly recommend sending them this video so that they'll be one step closer to creating an impact that lasts for a lifetime. Take care, everyone. See you next time on Master Talk.